Hi, everybody. My name is Martin Hossbach, and with me is Paul Duane. Paul Duane is the film's director, and he is based in Dublin. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening, Martin, and good evening, everybody who's watching.
So, what we are going to do is we are going to speak for a bit, only a little bit, and then we're going to watch the film, which is roughly, I think, 80 minutes long.
It's exactly 1 hour and 23 minutes long.
Ah, yes. So, I wanted to ask you, you've already done a movie about, and well, rather about than with Bill Drummond. So, were you aware of his new project, of him going to work again with his partner?
Well, it took a year out of my other film. I was making a film with Bill about his 12-year world tour, and we had started making that in 2016. So he announced that he was taking a year off from the world tour to mark the end of the moratorium on KLF related activities. And that basically meant nothing would happen with my other film. So I kind of ended up making this by accident because I happened to be around, and yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Were you, I mean, were you surprised? Did you, I mean, in his other work, Jimmy Corti is not really present. Were you surprised that they took those 23 years seriously and that there was something happening?
No, I mean Bill and Jimmy tend to, when they say they're going to do something, they do it, and I wasn't surprised that they were taking the 23-year anniversary seriously. It was just
Yeah,
that I had no idea what was going to happen, and everything was a complete surprise to me. I mean, they don't. I know Bill quite well, Jimmy less so, and Bill tends to share information, but he's very careful about who gets to hear about anything KLF related. It's really only the people who are intimately involved hear about what's going on, and
yeah,
so it was all a surprise.
yeah. Um, I have, I mean, actually, I wanted to ask you this question afterwards, but I think it doesn't do any harm asking it now. Um, I have attended a lot of his Bill's performances, and I think it's quite obvious that a lot of the people who come are KLF fans, and I don't know, they expect something KLF-ish to happen, but then it's only Bill. I think Bill is a great conceptual artist, but do you feel that also when you were at the event, which we're going to see soon, did you feel that people were mostly interested in, I don't know, in What Time Is Love, or in, I don't know, seeing those people, those two people who made this music? Or did you feel that there's, I mean, we're going to see it, that there were people actually interested in that new thing that they were going to do?
Well, it's inevitable that when Bill and Jimmy announce a new venture, that a sizable number of the people interested will have also been interested in their previous work,
Yeah,
their musical work. But I think they make it very clear to people, and it was clear from the beginning with this new venture that they embarked on that music was not going to be a part of it. That was very clear if you signed up and bought a ticket for the Welcome to the Dark Ages event.
yeah,
It said, I think I can't remember the exact words, but it was made very clear to you that this was not a musical event that you were signing up for.
yeah,
I think what they attempt to do is to bring the people who like their work on a journey with them,
yeah.
and some people some people will like it, some people won't like it, but it's an attempt to be inclusive and to offer them something different. As you know, Bill Bill said to me, if the KLF reformed and played, people would be disappointed because they would go and they would leave and they would still be 55 years old. They would not be returned magically to being 19 or 21 or whatever age it was when they heard the music. And that's what they want when a band reforms. They wanted to make them young again. And this isn't what we can do.
Yeah,
So he understands expectations. He doesn't frustrate expectations deliberately. Bill and Jimmy just understand that if you're going to do something, it has to be striking out into new territory. It can't just be a repeat of what
yeah,
was there before.
yeah. Is it? I mean, you said you came across that second movie that features Bill Drummond by accident, but has there in your recent work um, have there been other people who you've documented twice or who you've followed more than one?
Uh, Most people, not many people have one documentary in them. Very few have two. you know, it would be usually when I would finish with a subject, the subject is finished. But with Bill and Jimmy, there's a lot more. I mean, there's more films that could be made about those guys. I doubt they would allow them to be made, but there's certainly
Yeah,
a lot more material.
yeah. Okay, thank you. I think that was a nice introduction to the film. So everybody, please enjoy the film. We're going to see us at the end, and then there's time um, for you to ask questions. I have prepared some, but I don't need to ask them. So if you've got other or more questions or more interesting questions, you can ask them first. And let's see. Yeah, I hope you like it. I've enjoyed watching it. I'll watch it again. So see you later. Thanks, Paul.
Hello.
So hello everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you want to, you can use the chat on the right where I've made two entries. So please feel free to ask Paul questions in either English or German. If they're in German, and I'd be happy to translate. And my first question is: does one have to be a fan as a documentary filmmaker? Do you have to be a fan of the people who you follow? Do you have to like what they are doing? Do you have to know what they've done before? Do you have uh, to what extent do you have to be a fan? That's that's basically the question.
Well, I wouldn't use the word fan, but I certainly have made a conscious decision to try to work with people that I find inspiring and whose presence and whose activities I think are positive, because I have made films with and about people who have enormous difficulties, whether it's substance abuse or personality issues or mental health issues, and it's worthwhile, but it's really hard work. And as I get older, I feel less like I want to spend my time, around difficult and troubling people. So, I mean, Bill and Jimmy are inspirational people. They're really, really decent human beings. They're funny. So it's a no-brainer to work with people like that. Plus, they have an amazing story to tell if they ever want to tell it, which is the tricky part. All the most boring people want to tell you their story, and the most interesting people refuse to tell you their story, and that's Bill and Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. I mean, Bill has all these. I once worked for a music magazine, and we wanted to interview him, and it was well, it was impossible then because he had this rule. There was only, I can't remember, there was only one interview per year, or only three per year, or only one written interview, or one filmed interview. And in the film we've just watched, there's no, he doesn't speak to the camera, he doesn't interact with you, whereas Jimmy seems much more um, well, much more, I don't know, easy. And I really like the scene in the end where he says, "Is that the end then?" And then he looks behind and sees Bill, who's just sawing away in the background. Could you please tell us what it was like working with them and not working with them? Because they, I mean, they didn't stop you from filming, but also they didn't, especially Bill, I think. I mean, he's the only one I know a bit. They didn't. They didn't necessarily um, thought it was great that you were there.
Well, it was a long, complicated process. I mean, just even getting permission from the guys to make the film took quite a while. Then, we got their permission, their go ahead. I was able to raise the money, and on day 2 of filming, they decided that they didn't want to be in the film. So, what do you do? Do you give up? No, you don't give up. You just keep filming. So I filmed around them, and also they didn't, just because they decided they didn't want to be in the film, it didn't mean that they didn't want to cooperate. It just meant that they didn't, they wouldn't wear a microphone, they wouldn't be interviewed or do what they were asked. But they told me everything that they were doing and when and where it was happening. So if I wanted to come along and film it, I could. So that's what I did. I just came and filmed the things that were there to be filmed, and that became the film. So
Yeah.
if they had been more conventional documentary subjects, it would have been a very different film. But there's no such thing as conventional when you're dealing with the KLF or the Justified Ancients of Mumu.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, mm, um, did how could I say it? Well, the actual event seems very inclusive and informal and communal and and everyone. It doesn't seem as if there's a divide between the two stars and and the audience or the people who've attended the event, which I don't know. I mean, imagine this would be um, Robbie Williams or I don't know, Lady Gaga. You couldn't imagine an event like that. Is that is it was it as fun to be at the event as it looks like in the film? It looks quite yeah
Yeah,
jolly.
well, it's I'm the wrong person to ask that question, because I was working. You know,
Yeah,
the one of the problems about making documentary films is you get to be present at lots of very interesting, exciting events, but you're never able to participate or feel, be part of it fully, because you're filming. You're working, and that's your
yeah,
job. I mean, so when I was there, I was not there to enjoy myself. All I can say is, I mean, when you say stars or whatever, I mean, Bill and Jimmy do not see themselves as being stars in the way that, Robbie Williams or Lady Gaga would. They, even if you look at the promotional materials, the videos and so on back in the KLF days, you don't see their faces very much. I mean, they hide, they wear masks,
yeah,
they push other people to the front, and they're kind of happier being invisible, which is part of the reason why they had a problem with there being a documentary because, or not, they didn't want to have a problem with there being a documentary, but they didn't want to be in it. They're not very, I wouldn't say they're not egotistical, but they're certainly not, they're not personality led, and they don't really feel like their personalities and their faces are an important part of the process. And they try to remove themselves from it to some degree. I mean, when they did the book signing of when they published their book 2023, they did a book signing, but they had rubber stamps. They stamped the books. They didn't sign them. It's a sort of impatience with the commodification of celebrity, I think, to some degree, and the idea that there's something special about a book that's been signed by a famous person, or something special about a famous person. I think they believe that in some way we're all the same, and why do you want to? Why do you need validation from famous people?
Yeah, yeah. There's a person in the movie that, as a KLF fan, you've only ever read about, but you've never seen him, and he's uh, he's a very important person in the film, I think, Gimpo. And Gimpo, I think it's being said at one point, right, that he used to be their roadie or something. But could you tell us what the infamous Gimpo? What I mean, and he says he's quite happy working. So of course he's a worker, and they maybe pay him, or maybe he's just a friend. But what what do you think? What's his job? What is he?
Oh, he gets paid all right. Yeah, Gimpo wouldn't work for nothing, and rightly so. Nobody should work for nothing.
Yeah,
But Gimpo, I mean, he says it in the film. He's a roadie
yeah,
for a band that never played live, so it's a non job. Gimpo became an important part of the team. His sister was dating Zodiac Mindwarp, who was Bill's
ah,
best friend, Mark Manning, at the time. He ended up becoming part of the KLF kind of crew, just doing whatever crazy shit that they needed doing. And it's hard to explain. I mean, you can't really explain why he's such an important part, but he's been there for some of the most, he filmed the burning of the £1,000,000. He tells the story in the film about how he refused to let them push the purpose-built cinema they'd created for screening the film off a cliff, and instead they pushed a hire car off a cliff. Gimpo's just been there forever, and he's part of he's an ex-army guy. He's very practical, hardworking, down to earth. He's the opposite of everything the art world or the music world is all about, and I think maybe that's part of the attraction, really, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. There's another great scene, I think, where they read old and unopened fan letters. Um, and I mean, you've already talked about, or you've already given us an idea of what they are, of how they are behind the scenes. And this movie, of course, also helps. But it says a lot, right? Not, I mean, I don't know. I've never received a fan letter, but not reading them and having bags of unopened letters is very telling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I really like that scene. Bill particularly hates that scene with the unopened fan mail. I don't know why. Maybe it's something to do with maybe he thinks it's some. It's maybe he thinks it was mean to their fans that they didn't read their fan mail back in 1991 or 1990. But I don't really understand what his objection to it is. It's funny. I mean, to me it was just something that happened. You look for moments that are going to be filmable, and when they pulled out the bag of unopened fan mail, it was like, yeah, why? Well, can we read some of it? It's just a fun thing to do. It's kind of crazy that it also reminds the audience that, in 1990, they were an enormously successful pop group because,
Yeah,
we were filming in 2018 when their music was completely unavailable everywhere. And, nobody really, they'd deliberately kind of taken their cultural imprint away. So, we needed a way to remind the audience that these guys were pop stars, and
Yeah,
that was kind of it. And I'm glad you like it.
yeah. Were you surprised when it was announced that the KLF's music was available to stream from the 1st of January 2021 on? Were you surprised or even or sad or angry?
Yeah, yeah. No. I mean, no. Why should I be angry? No, I was actually. It was New Year's Eve, and I was with a couple of friends celebrating New Year's Eve quietly, and suddenly my phone started buzzing with people sending me messages going, "The KLF are on Spotify," and I just replied, going, "Don't be stupid. It's a hoax. There's no. It's probably somebody else pretending to be them." And of course, then the next morning I woke up and it was all over the newspapers that they had snuck their music out. And it was a complete surprise to me because the last I heard, they had planned to completely destroy all of their master tapes and make them into bricks. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it was, you never really know what's going to happen with Bill and Jimmy. They go their own way.
yeah. Um, I don't know if it's a too intimate question to ask, but have you yourself applied for mummification, or is it something you
Well,
would
the
consider?
problem with mummification for the problem for me with mummification is you depend on having reliable friends to supply the brick and the ashes
Yeah,
to be mummified after your death. And I'm not sure my friends are that reliable that they would be able to measure 23 grams of my ashes. Mind you, some of my friends are very good at measuring grams of things, but we'll see how it goes after I'm dead. I don't know. I mean, I haven't signed up for it.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I have theoretically no objections to it. It's just that I hadn't. I'm I have certain ecological reservations about being cremated. It's a very energy sapping process. It's
yeah,
very expensive on your carbon footprint. If I can get around that, then maybe I will.
yeah. And did you follow the what happened afterwards? I mean, did you? I read a statement that there where the ceremony with new bricks, and it said there were 13, 14 new bricks should have become part of the People's Pyramid on November 20 and the 23rd of last year. And it said, due to the current circumstances, this will not take place. Instead, the new stones will be added next year. Um, that's the last info I found on the internet. Do you have any other update?
No, like everybody, the the People's Pyramid project is in limbo until we can have um, mass gatherings safely again. And
Yeah,
once people are allowed to gather safely in Liverpool, pardon me, it will come back, and there will be another ceremony, and more bricks will be added to the pyramid.
yeah,
But nobody knows when that's going to happen, and it's a responsible. They're taking a responsible position. They're
yeah,
just saying it's on hold,
yeah,
but I'm sure it'll be back.
yeah. Could you quickly tell us, although this is not the subject of this talk, but what the other film you have made with or about Bill Drummond? What's it about? Is it about him in general, or another project, or another art piece?
Um, I had been working with Bill for quite a long time, making a film about his conceptual art, I suppose you'd call it. Bill, when I met him, was about to embark on his 12-year world tour,
Ah, yeah.
which is a which was a very ambitious project that would initially the plan was for him to travel around the world, spending a couple of weeks in a different country each year. Each country was somewhere he was connected to. It wasn't just random. It was places that he had family connections to or emotional connections to. And so I filmed two legs of that tour, one in Kolkata in India and the other in Lexington in South Carolina in the USA. And that was the basis for Best Before Death. Was, we made it from Bill's activities in those two places. The world tour, for obvious reasons, has also had difficulties in continuing under COVID, but Bill has reconfigured the whole idea so that he plans to now continue but working with migrant populations in the UK. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to Haiti, he'll work with Haitian immigrants in the UK, or instead of going to um, the Kurdish area of Turkey, which is what he was planning on doing, he'll work with Kurds in the UK, which is, I think, a more sensible and a more appropriate response in the current times we're living in.
Yeah.
But that's part of Bill's interest. What interests me about Bill is his flexibility when the world um, seems to say to him that maybe what he's doing could be done better or differently, or he could learn something. He's open to learning and open to changing,
Yeah.
which for a man in his 60s who has had a certain amount of success in the world of art and music and film and whatever, it's quite a lot. A lot of people just don't. They stop growing and stop changing, and Bill seems very keen to continue to grow and change as he gets older, and
Yeah.
that's what he's done. And Best Before Death is partly about that process.
Yeah. And when we spoke before the event, you told me you were in post production. Is that something you want to tell us about, or is it still a secret?
Well, I was just very lucky in that under lockdown I managed to find a film to make just up the road from where I live in Dublin, because I haven't been able to leave or go very far in the last year like everybody else. So I've been making a film based around the Natural History Museum, where they've had to take down two enormous whale skeletons that have been hanging from the ceiling since Victorian times, 150 years. These skeletons have been hanging in the air from the ceiling of this enormous Victorian building. So I've basically been doing an observational documentary about the task of taking them down, which is a very different kind of film to
Yes.
um, the ones that I've made before, but it's very, very rewarding and positive, and it's nice. It's just nice to make a film about intelligent people taking on a very difficult task
Yeah.
and using teamwork and creativity and intelligence and rational science to solve problems, because we are dealing with a period in human history where rationality is not as valued as it might have been before. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of drawn to, it's good to see that it still exists in
Yeah.
certain areas.
And when will we be able to see it? Some point this year?
Hopefully it's for Irish TV, so it's whenever they broadcast it, and hopefully it'll show internationally. We've got a very well known Irish Hollywood star doing the voiceover, which will add to the commercial nature of the project. So
Yeah.
hopefully it'll sell. You might see it in different countries.
Yeah. Good.
But right now I'm just working on finishing it, so I'm not
Yeah.
really thinking too far down the line.
Yeah. Okay, Paul. Thank you. I don't see any questions in the chat. So thanks
No questions.
everyone for having joined us. We hope. Oh, there is a question. Now there is one. So I'm going to read it to you. Awesome film. This is from Becky Vickers. Awesome film. Hope you're all well. As a filmmaker, how do you approach artists like Bill and Jim to participate in a film? And do you plan on continuing documenting Bill's 12-year project?
I didn't catch the first part of the question. The second part, I mean, I'm constantly, I'm in contact with Bill about the world tour. I'm fascinated by how it continues. I think maybe I've said what I have to say about it. I would absolutely love to work further with Bill and Jimmy in any combination. They're two of my favorite people, two of the most creative people I've ever met or worked with. But I don't currently have any plans to do anything. Bill says he's writing a movie script for me to direct. We'll see if it ever gets finished. If it does, we'll see if it ever gets funded, if it ever gets made. But it's nice to know. I mean, I got to say, it's kind of sweet to know that somebody as great as Bill is kind of thinking about me as somebody he'd like to do future projects with.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the
Plus,
first part of the question was, how do you approach artists like Bill and Jimmy to participate in a film? I mean, is it, I don't know, through an email or through walking up to
well,
them, pestering them, asking friends to put you in touch?
well, um, the audio keeps breaking up, Martin. But I think the question was, how do you approach people like Bill and Jimmy
Yes.
to work on something? And just you approach them with honesty. You approach them with you should do your homework. I mean, when I initially made my approach to Bill, I'm sure it helped that I was very clear that I didn't want to make a film about his past and about the KLF, that I was interested in making a film about his own art and his future and what he was working on at that time. And as time passed, as the years passed, it became a film, and we worked on a film about the KLF separately. But that was because trust had grown, and you just they're very the artists can be very open people. You just have to kind of, particularly when you're dealing with people like Bill and Jimmy, who have a lot of people approaching them with bad approaches or dishonest or shallow proposals and ideas about their past and about their notoriety. It helps if you're coming to them with something original and something that might interest them, as opposed to just being something that would make you look good. So yeah, it's just common sense, really.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'll wait for another 10 seconds whether there's another question. So there was two from Becky. Thank you, Becky. Um, yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Becky.
Thanks, Paul, for your time. I hope to see you soon,
Thank you,
one
Martin.
day. All the best for finishing the new one, and have a
Thank you.
good night. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.